quite the journey so far, right? So in February, you're at 43,000, and then the last 30
Yeah,
days, you're at 102,000 now.
yeah, super cool, man.
Yeah, so
Excited.
that's some pretty stellar growth. That's like from about 600K per year to, a little over 1.2 million now.
Yeah, yeah, we were really stuck at that kind of 50K mark. We had hit around 70 before, but really tried to push toward that 100, man, and we were just struggling to get there.
Yeah. So tell everyone like a little bit about what you do with the business and how you came up with the idea and what you sell.
Yeah, 100%. So, my name's Matt Grice. Me and my wife Crystal own a Christian clothing brand called Disciple Threads, and we're all about just sharing the gospel of Jesus through rad apparel. Unfortunately, the Christian space has been notoriously known for pretty cheesy kind of designs, and of course, growing up in like the '80s and '90s, uh, it was pretty bad back then, and hasn't been much better, in current times. So we really wanted to just break that paradigm.
I love it.
Um, but I'm a graphic designer by trade, been in, that kind of industry for a long time, and started screen printing t-shirts and all that. And then in 2020, we decided to launch the brand just as kind of a creative outlet for myself. And yeah, we had no idea it'd be what it is today, man, but here we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
man.
what were y'all doing like before the 40K months? Like what channels were you running? How did y'all get up to that 40K mark initially? What were y'all doing?
So yeah, the first probably year was a lot of organic, Instagram, Facebook, that kind of stuff. And then a little over a year in, we started running some paid ads on Facebook, and we did, on our own for a while, but we hired an agency to help us to kind of get us to that 50K mark. But of course, it's super expensive, and as a small growing brand, man, it was tough. But yeah,
Yeah.
mostly organic, and then just Facebook ads.
And when you say organic, is that like real post or is that just like images? Like what kind of content are you posting at that point? And like, are you seeing sales coming just like purely off of like the posts you were doing?
Yeah, so back then it was a little bit before kind of all the reels started to take over. So we were doing a lot of images, a lot of kind of testimonial type stuff, encouraging stuff, and that really kind of helped build our community, as a organic page on Instagram. So that was a big part of it, and we did start to see some sales through that, but we weren't running any like marketing systems really at that point.
Yeah. So y'all were like, posting like quotes and stuff, right? And that was getting a lot of engagement for y'all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so that
And
builds up
just
the
kind of like
community,
lifestyle shots and stuff like that.
right? There was no like hard sales tactic there.
Right.
Yeah. See, that's like the way to do it is like, building up a following, building up a user base, building up, a group of people, a community. And then like later down the line, like you have this platform to then, sell to.
Yeah, for sure.
That just loves the messaging, right? So
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, and so you started dabbling in Facebook ads, and what were the first campaigns you set up then?
Oh man, light years different from what we're doing nowadays. I mean, honestly, dude, like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, and um, just a lot of different things. Lifestyle images worked really well back then. Wasn't a lot of video content. It was just some really clean photography of our products, on models that really fit our demographic. There was a lot of even myself and my wife, and, in those early days, we still do some of us, from time to time, but um, yeah, it was a lot of that. And then once we kind of hired the agency, they helped us more with a little bit better structure and that sort of thing. But um, man, we just really were trying all sorts of different things, carousels, catalogs, that sort of stuff for sure.
Yeah, and were y'all finding anything that was working, or is it just like, you're trying everything, you're seeing a little bit of growth, but you're just not like, cracking the code?
For the longest time, the model photos worked really well for us, just really high quality photography on a model. And then we'd do different things with those, with, like I said, carousels and stuff like that. But man, really, the model photography was a big hitter for us to start with.
Yeah, with clothing, like models are great. Were you doing like, lifestyle in the sense that like people are like walking around, or is it, lookbook style content where it's in studio, professional shot, iPhone, or is it camera grade? What is it?
Yeah, it was like professional camera grade, more like kind of street style stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And what were y'all growing at like monthly around those times? Like how much were you stacking every month from there?
Yeah, so with that agency around that time, we went from about 30 to close to 50. And then kind of the years past that, we were just really kind of stuck at that kind of 50, 60. And then, like I said, went up to about 70 or a little over during like Q4 and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then it started trickling back down.
Yeah, so kind of moving into this year, last year was a really big year of growth. We've been in our current facility for almost 3 years, so we have a full print production facility with employees now and all that stuff. And yeah, so last year was really good for us, but coming into 25, January was really one of the worst years we had in quite some time. And I think that's when we really realized that, man, we've got to get some of these systems in place and get some help with a real good, path moving forward.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of your metrics and like June of last year is like hovering, you're bouncing between like, 50 and 57 and then 45. And it's kind of like seems like it was just up, just tinkering between those ranges, right?
Yeah,
And so it's like,
exactly.
where's the breakout moment to be able to scale? Okay, and
Hmm.
so we started talking and we started going through some things together. What was like the first thing that like, started moving the needle? Was it the creative, the offer, the ads, the website?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to do with the ads. I think really just realizing that we weren't putting out enough volume was a big part of it. We would put out ads and just kind of let them flow, and then we'd fatigue out and then kind of scramble to get back to it. So I think really just really figuring out how important testing is and trying different things, and I think that was a big part of it for me.
Yeah, a lot of times like brands will get in this loop of essentially like they'll test like a handful of creatives and then they'll find something that works and then they hold on to it for like dear life.
And that's
And they
exactly what we did with those like lifestyle images. We were trying to do those just as long as we possibly could, and then now that stuff just doesn't work like it used to.
Yeah, so people were just like, come on, I just stay working.
Yep.
Um, but then what happens is it'll eventually like have a drop off in a week or it'll start trickling down and then your results are going down and then people will be like, okay, well, maybe I need new ads or no, this ad's worked for me forever. So they relaunch their
Yeah.
campaigns with the same ad. And then it's
Yep.
like, well, it's still not working, but it is. But they just don't launch any new creatives until it officially dies. And then their like account is tanked so hard, they're having to revive it. You know,
Exactly. And we've been through that 100%.
Yeah, so like, the transition, right, is from going from there to you said like, more volume, right, where you're getting ahead of the curve before it tanks, you're actually bringing in creatives ahead of time.
Yeah.
So what does that cadence look like now?
Yeah. So we're really just trying to follow that structure of launching, a good handful of ads every week. And that's quite different from what we used to do. We would just kind of create them as we felt like we needed to, which was obviously a big part of the downfall with just getting stuck, in that, revenue range you spoke about. But yeah, so we're really trying to pump out, new, fresh creative every week and really trying different things and, capitalizing on what's working and, trying to figure out what's not working. And also, I'll say that messaging has been a big, big part of it. We used to do very generic headlines, very generic ad copy. And, um, I think this program has really helped me to understand that we have to really dive into that customer avatar and really really speak to them as like me and you were speaking right now, like, hey
100%.
man, this is what we do. You're either in or you're out, basically, especially as a faith-based brand. I mean, we need to make that messaging extremely clear that exactly what we do. And that's really helped streamline that for sure.
I love that. Yeah, so I mean, like connecting with people on a personal level is like something so many people miss. They're like, buy this tea, or they'll say, you know, um, the fabric we make with this tea is so amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, features and benefits can be good as educational form, but like, what is the message you're actually like putting out there, right? For people to like, resonate, connect, and buy.
Yeah, and
A
the
lot of,
marketplace is so convoluted, you can't get away with that anymore. Like that kind of stuff worked in the early days, but not anymore, man. I mean, you really have to kind of set yourself apart with um, the community base and kind of the offering. And so that's been a big part of it.
yeah, and like messaging. Like there's like tiers to it that, like you can have one message that resonates with, let's say a certain pocket of people, then you can have a second message that resonates with even more, and then a third message that can, really be mainstream. So
Yeah.
there's different tiers to like reaching people. Like we were looking at one of these brands that we were speaking with, and it's like this probiotic is great for your health. And like, okay, yeah, maybe people who are interested in improving their health, they're like, okay, maybe I need a probiotic or a prebiotic, but they don't know what it is. They're like, I want to be healthy. I'm eating healthier, so maybe I need this thing that's supposedly healthy. Whereas the other
Yeah,
message is um, fix your gut. And then there's no mention of the prebiotic until you get to the landing page. So people are like naturally intrigued of like, okay, I have gut issues. That's a specific problem, and that message
mhm.
resonates with that people. And then they're like, okay, they click through, and then they're, being educated on the product page, which is, prebiotic helps fix your gut. It helps do this. It helps do that.
Yeah,
That message is what resonated with, a higher pocket of people.
for sure.
Yeah. Messaging is so interesting with how like many ways you can go about doing it. So you started doing more creative testing. Things
Hmm.
started to move the needle. Now there's less like drops, right? So this is the first
Yeah.
chance where you could actually start increasing month over month. Most people don't get in a position where they can go month over month. You've had like, I think like 5 or 4 to 5 months of back to back records, right? Just going up and up, just stacking consistently.
Yeah, for sure. We've been meeting with the team and, kind of going over some numbers and just excited to say, hey, well, last month was our best month ever. And then again, hey, this month is our best month ever. And then again, hey, we finally, broke that barrier where we've really been trying to hit that, those six figures.
And what metrics are you looking at now in your ad account? What do you look at? When do you say like, okay, this is doing well? Or, what are you identifying? Are there like specific data points?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of our North Star is really cost per purchase. So, we have a very specific goal that we need to hit to where we know 100% that we're profitable and then we can scale on those numbers. And of course, ROAS piggybacks right on top of
Sure.
that. So really those two numbers are kind of our North Star to really push the needle.
And you calculate that number based off your margin, what you have to
Yeah.
spend, and then you set that number. And then anything below is what? And then above, like what do you see? Like how do you
Yeah, yeah.
dictate?
Yeah, so anything that's above our cost per purchase, for example, let's say it's $15 cost per purchase. If we start seeing it creep up to that 17 or 18, then that's a red flag. We really need to watch those ads, watch those campaigns, and um, see if it's time to kill them or not. And of course, if they're below that, for example, for like our big drop campaigns for new items and stuff like that, we'll have, a super low cost per purchase. So, that helps us know that we can be more aggressive and scale those a lot easier. Um, and if we see those start to creep up to that $20 per purchase, then we know we need to kind of pivot and maybe it's the creative, maybe it's the messaging or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So you've gotten a lot more like methodical around like being, more tight with your data. Because
Yeah,
15 to 18 is not a lot of an increase to some people, but to you, you're like, whoa, that's up there. But other people are like,
yeah.
that's only $3.
Yeah. And on some of those bigger scaling campaigns, the ROAS and cost per purchase is going to be a little higher. You're trying to reach a lot more people with a bigger budget. So, kind of understanding why those numbers increase and how to approach it is important. Um, but yeah, that's really just help us determine what's successful and what's not.
Yeah. So you've gotten really good at like, distributing budget to the right things.
Yeah, trying to at least.
Nice. And then so talk about the drop strategy. So you mentioned like you see a lot of like purchases on drop days. So I think a lot of people are like interested in like drops. It's kind of like this like, thing people hear about. They don't necessarily understand the strategy behind it. Break it down. Like how does that work or how does one implement a drop strategy?
Yeah, so we probably operate a little bit differently than some brands might. I guess you wouldn't say we're necessarily like a drop-based brand. Like we'll do a new drop, but we try to build as many like evergreen products as we can. So once we release a product and if it's successful, we'll keep it going. And then we'll also create products, other products based on that design or variations or colorways and stuff like that. But as far as the strategy goes in the ad account, you know, you've helped me and also Jake. We kind of created a nice little structure for that. So we'll do a campaign specifically for that drop, and we'll do maybe three different audiences within that campaign. So we'll have retargeting. So we're retargeting customers that are already familiar with us, and they oh sweet new design, so they'll snag it. Then we'll have some sort of broad's worked really well for us. We've kind of moved that direction where a lot of our audiences are wider, um, less interest based. We still test some of them from time to time, just kind of depending. So yeah, we'll have that retargeting abroad, and then we've also been doing an Advantage Plus, so which is kind of another broad uh, audience mixed with a little bit of retargeting, I guess you could say. But we've kind of been doing those three within that one campaign, and that's been super successful. So we can, scale those ad sets individually based on kind of what's working the best.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's great because then you can get really good results. It's very dialed in. You can have these big sales days, and then the evergreen side of it, which is the pieces that you keep year round, you can continue scaling.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So month over month, you've been like, going up in revenue from like just all these things included. How do you handle like the fulfillment, customer support, or like the team needs is like, you know, revenues climbing? Is it sustainable or is there a certain point that it's not? Or, are you having issues with that or is it just smooth riding?
So we've actually hired since we've been in the program. So
Okay,
we've hired one person to help with production because the workload's been pretty intense. We're set up to do about where we're at right now, but moving forward we'll definitely have to do some more hiring. My wife Crystal still actually handles all the customer service stuff. She's kind of the operations director and handles some of that customer service too. So yeah, we're using Gorgeous and Shopify to handle that and trying to use some of the AI tools to automate some of that as much as possible. Because as a clothing business, you're going to get returns and
sure.
exchanges and that sort of thing. So navigating that's definitely been a bit of a challenge, but trying to really lean in those AI tools for that. And then fulfillment, yeah, we pack and ship everything out of our own warehouse. So
That's
um,
awesome.
probably that department has been seeing the biggest increase. Like, dang, I'm packing like 100 orders a day now
That's
when they were
awesome.
packing like 40.
Yeah.
So um, so yeah, it's definitely evident, man, that there's been an increase. So as of right now, we're navigating it. It's been challenging, I'll say, but we're making it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so like what tools are you using? You mentioned Gorgeous, websites on Shopify. Are there any other apps that you've like implemented?
Yeah, absolutely. One of our biggest hitters really is Klaviyo. So we use Klaviyo for all of our email and SMS marketing. Um, and I'll say on that note that that's something I think a lot of brands don't see the value in. Um, our email marketing is 30+% of our revenue.
Mm,
So, we have a lot of flows on the back end going. Um, and a lot of the stuff, we've been doing this stuff for a while, but through the program, I've learned some different ways to tweak some of those things and better messaging and, not just about sales, but also just adding value to our customers. When they order, it's so huge, man. I added a post purchase flow that was pretty generic, and then I took some of the advice in the course that you'd given, adding, how to take care of the products and, letting the customers know, hey, we're working on your order, those
a
simple
hundred
things in
percent.
that process that man, they're not even sales emails, but they generate
Yeah.
revenue.
Well,
Um,
from your perspective, why do you think so many people don't do email?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just a lack of knowledge or understanding like what the purpose is, or um, it could be time. A lot of it was time for us. Shoot, I don't have time to do that.
Mm.
Well, we realized we have to make time to do it,
Yeah.
and to do those weekly campaigns as well. And they're not always sales emails. It's just reaching out to the customers. And in our circumstance, we're reaching out with testimonials and things like that, and encouragement, and all those sort of things. And again, those aren't even sales emails, but we do have
Totally.
like a soft sale at the bottom with some new products or maybe stuff they may haven't seen from us. And those have even been big revenue generators.
Yeah. 30% is huge. And it, it blows my mind that so many people like don't do a ton of stuff on the email side, like between the flows, like, like you said, it doesn't have to be salesy. Like it
Yeah.
can be authoritative, it can be educational. It can be, confirming orders, answering support, just keeping them updated on the tracking process. Like for whatever
Yeah.
reason, just like keeping your customer in the know, it provides like a better buyer, journey. And then that factors into your returning customer rate. And most people don't
Oh
realize
yeah.
it because it's hard to like, you know, measure to some degree, but you don't
Hmm.
realize like, just staying in contact with them throughout the shipping process, the post-purchase process, and then every month, and then, even before when they opt in and giving them, updates or sharing tips or education or getting them to see other products like you mentioned, it does
Yeah.
move the needle for the bottom line.
Yeah, for sure. And like other apps we're using, I think a lot of brands also neglect reviews from the very get-go, man. We started using Judge Me, and that's been a huge tool just to really get that social proof. Um, and that I think that's really what helped move the needle too, is people go on and see positive reviews, you know, customers are going to trust somebody else's opinion rather than what I tell them. I could sit here and say it's high quality all day or whatever, but they want to hear from other real people and see other real like user generated content and stuff like
A
that.
thousand percent.
Let's see, we installed Rebuy as well during this program, and we were previously using a different cart, so it's not the native Shopify cart. Um, it's a nice slide out cart that has product recommendations and upsells and stuff like that, and plus it just looks super clean. So that's gone well for us, and then plus the bundling options that they offer and stuff like that, it's been really cool.
Yeah, so that can help increase conversion rates like the slide cart. You're not going to a cart page. Then you have upsells, and then you have, bundles like you mentioned. Those are doing AOVs, which a lot of people don't have. Like just
Yeah.
bundling your products can increase revenue without you even promoting it. It's so bizarre.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
people want to buy more sometimes.
Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah. So those are some like really solid tools. And then like the review side of it is like it's not just reviews on a website. It's now if you get reviews up, well, that's one part of it. But now you can use the reviews in your emails. You can use the reviews in an ad. When people
Yep.
search online, now your reviews are popping up. You can then connect them to your Google, shopping listings. You can import them to TikTok Shop. Like there's so many avenues people can go with that, and
Yeah,
then
and now we're using ChatGPT to scrub those to help us create our copy, and man, it's super
genius.
valuable.
Yeah, ChatGPT is awesome now. I feel like it's just getting better and better.
It is. It's insane.
Yeah, like about a year or two ago, I remember like the Will Smith video, and it was like an AI, and it's like his head's moving everywhere, and like it's a bunch of different weird scenes, and it was like, oh, this
Yeah,
is
that spaghetti
interesting.
one.
Yeah, it was really
Crazy.
interesting. And it was like, wow, that's kind of like cool, but like obviously like it wasn't anything there, but it went
Yeah.
mega viral, and everybody was mind blown by it. But like literally in like within a year, 2 years, we now have videos that with Google VO indistinguishable. Like you
Right.
can't even tell the difference. And it's like that's a short time frame. I don't think people realize how short of a time frame that is.
Yeah, it's
Um,
incredible, man.
the AI stuff is getting like super, crazy and it's accelerating at rates that I don't think a lot of people understand how fast it actually is moving.
Yeah.
Like You can spin up ad creatives. I mean, before long, you're going to be able to spin up full websites, full emails, and like just be clicking, one button, email done, one button, website done. The
Yeah,
game's going to change.
it is. And it's, making the landscape even more competitive. So, we have to learn how to stand out.
Yeah, you can like speed run Shopify stores now, which is pretty crazy, from
Yeah, it's
designs and
nuts.
everything. Yeah, so I think like now, like, you have to be more authentic than ever with your content and like your messaging, to like pierce through that stuff always.
Yeah, I agree, man.
So what's your like daily workflow like right now? And like what are you focusing on most?
Yeah, so I do all the marketing and design for the company. So my daily workflow is usually just coming in and, I have specific days where I'm focusing more on ads and then other days where I'm focusing more on, content creation and stuff like that. So it's a little bit all over the board, but um, I feel like I have a little bit more structure now that I know that I can put certain days on the calendar that I need to get, these ads finished and published and all that sort of stuff. So um, yeah, man, just a lot of marketing design for sure.
Love it. Yeah, more routine.
Yeah.
And what's your goal now that you passed 100K in the last 30 days? What's
Yeah,
next?
man. I guess we'll try to shoot for that 250,000,
There we go. So
you
quarter
know.
million per month. What do you think will be different then?
Man, I think it's a volume game for sure. Just making sure we have obviously plenty of staff and inventory to make that happen. But to get there, this course has really just helped me realize the volume that's needed to really get to, even those six figures at all is just really pumping it out, testing all the time. And so, yeah, I think really just building my creative team is going to be a big part of that strategy for sure.
Yeah, it's like 80%. It's becoming like 90% of the effort these days is like focusing on creative content
Yep,
and how you position
absolutely.
things and what it looks like. And if people aren't doing creative right, then it's going to be pretty hard to scale.
Yeah, it will. So we'll have to see, what that looks like, whether we're outsourcing some of that or, building the in-house team. Probably a little bit of both, I'm sure. But yeah, so we'll just keep trucking forward.
There we go. And if somebody's stuck at like 30 to 50K monthly, they're bouncing between that range. Like, what would be your advice to like break past that?
Yeah, so if they're already running ads at that point, which they probably should be, um, yeah, I would just reiterate the importance of testing and really trying to hone in on the messaging. I think is a big part of it. You really have to learn, who you're speaking to, who's your ideal customer, and then like you said, at the different stages, sometimes that changes because now we're having to, our audience is broadened. So, it's not just like Christian metalheads anymore. It's like all sorts of people that are really interested in what we're doing, and so kind of learning how to adapt that messaging as you grow. And again, I know I've said it many times, but just like really diving into the testing
Mm,
and trying different creatives and seeing what's hitting, keep with the UGC content, keep with some of the lo-fi content that looks more organic to the platform has really helped us too because as a graphic designer, I want everything to be super polished and professional. And I had to really kind of learn how to get out of my own head with that. And like, you know what? People want to see real content. They want to see stuff that would be from their buddy down the street or whatever,
100%. Yeah, that's super valuable. I agree with all of those points. Um, that's
And
awesome.
we still do some of both. Like some of our real polished content does extremely well as well. But from kind of the day-to-day ads, we try to really vary it. And I think that's, what maybe some of the smaller brands might be doing that they could really improve on. Just keep testing and try different things and just see what really resonates with your audience.
Yeah, not getting stuck in like one path or one, specific style.
Yeah. And then, of course, the email marketing, make sure you have, once those customers are coming through the website, you've got to figure out how you can get them to come back or capture them on the back end and really just nurture them through email. And, you can run Facebook ads all day. But if you're not getting them to come back, then you're missing out on a lot of revenue.
I 100% agree. Yeah. The email side, like back end retentions are just as important as, the customer acquisition part of it. You can
Yeah.
like, be able to increase your margin significantly just by retaining customers.
Yeah, and we've barely kind of tapped into SMS. We were kind of slow to jump on board with that. And that's okay though. I mean, we've really built a nice email list, and the SMS is coming right behind it. So, but those two are kind of hand in hand. When we do email campaigns, we'll push an SMS at the same time usually. So,
Yeah, SMS is really good for the drops and then like,
yeah,
customer recovery if they like abandon cart because, people are so busy in their day-to-day lives. Like,
exactly.
they get abandoned cart and it doesn't mean that they didn't want to buy. Like they could have been on the road, they could have been at an event, they could have been, called to dinner. Like there's
Yeah,
just so many scenarios picking up their kids. Like who knows?
yeah.
Um, it just
And that's me
happens.
right there. I'm like, oh, cool. I got a text. I'll look at it later.
Yeah.
I'm so busy.
People get swamped. So like,
Yeah,
you want to have these different wavelengths of communication at different times. So that way, it's kind of like reminders. It's not even like a hard pitch in a lot of ways.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
and you'd be surprised that like most people don't realize how much you can recover from that.
No, you're right.
Awesome. Well, this has been like super valuable. Thanks for sharing a lot of this. Who do you
Yeah,
think
man.
who do you think would be best for the mentorship and like what would you recommend it? Like who would you recommend it to?
Yeah, I would say brands that are, semi-established that have, you know, a good Shopify site going, have some sales, have proof of concept, I think is a really important part of it. If you're not sure that your product actually resonates with anybody, then keep it that first. I think a lot of people try to jump way too soon into even running paid ads or jumping in these type of mentorships, and then they go into debt and can't recover and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I would say, yeah, if you're between that 30 to 50K a month, that's a good sweet spot because that's, where we were for a while, and again, kind of up and down from that quite a bit. But have proof of concept, have some sales coming in, have some uh, reviews and all that sort of stuff, so that when you are driving traffic, there's actually people that have bought the stuff before and actually like it. So
Yeah.
that's a big part of it.
Product market fit is like number one. You have to
Yeah.
have that. Um, because 0 to 10 is like the hardest part of it. Once you
Yeah.
figure out your product, everything else from there, like there's things you can implement to grow. But if you can't figure out like how to get your first sale or even your first 10 or 100, it's pretty hard. You have to make sure you know your audience and know what you're doing initially.
Yeah. And I would recommend that they have been running some paid ads for at least a little bit, dipping their toes and kind of familiar with the ad account and familiar how the algorithm works a little bit, and understanding, their numbers is a big part of it. If you don't know your numbers and you're running into paid advertising, you're going to be in a world of hurt because you're going to be blowing cash that you may or may not have. Um, so yeah, I would say they need to be familiar with running ads to some extent. Otherwise it could be a little overwhelming, or they might not be able to get as much as they possibly could out of it, I would say. And of course, that's just my opinion, but
Yeah, there's learning curves and, data is like one of those things that a lot of people get lost in. It can be
yeah.
confusing. Cool. So where can people find you if they want to check out your brand
Yeah, man. Just go to disciplethreads.co, hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. And yeah, you can find us.
and buy some product?
Yeah, check it out.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this call.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you, Chase, your team, and you really helped us get to where we're at. So, and hey, I've still got almost a couple months left of the program,
I
so
know.
excited
So
excited to see where we're going.
we'll have to do a recap at like 250.
That'd be sweet. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's possible to do like numbers like that in a short time frame. You've been like what, stacking 20 every month, so I mean, it's not too far out. You can make big leaps.
yeah,
I'd
I
love to
think
see
so.
that.
Yeah, same.
Sweet.